Hi there, my name is Diego Alfonso, and I'm one of the hosts with the Florida Aviation Network, broadcasting live and in the clear from the Aerospace Center for Excellence at Lakeland Airport in Lakeland, Florida, celebrating the 50th anniversary of FUN Aerospace Expo. If you haven't made it to Lakeland lately, now is your opportunity. Don't miss it. The greatest air show on earth. As you know, we interview personalities in aviation, individuals that are dedicated their time not only to perform as pilots or anywhere in the aviation business, but also in the maintenance side of aviation. And one of those individuals is the owner of Lockwood Aviation. And we have here today with us Phil Lockwood. Phil, welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure, Diego.
Now, it's been quite a while because I remember we did this probably about 7 years ago, 8 years ago. I think your hair was a little darker, and so was mine, yeah. I think. But let me tell you, so it's always a pleasure for me to interview you because you bring on what I think the experimental world have done to aviation. As I told you before, it's just it kicked up our aviation world a few notches up there. And I understand that in this time that we haven't seen each other, Lockwood Aviation has grown and diversified, and I think, why don't you let our audience know exactly the road that you have taken?
Sure. Well, we have 4 different divisions. Lockwood Aviation Supply is the company that specializes in Rotax engines, all the parts for them, replacement parts. And so we're based in Sebring, and we supply parts to the whole country, but we're responsible for the East Coast. We also have Lockwood Aviation Repair, which specializes in the repair and overhaul of Rotax aircraft engines and the aircraft that they're installed in. So we'll do everything there from minor maintenance to complete engine overhaul and everything in between. And then we have a company that manufactures and supports the AirCam, which is kind of cool, twin engine, open cockpit airplane. And that airplane, of course, we continue to develop it and support it over the years. And we also have a flight school where we teach everything from light sport, private, commercial, instrument. And we do a lot of transition training for the AirCams. And we have a special situation now where we can do multi-sea training in our twin engine float AirCam, which is a hard rating to get, and so we're able to do that in the AirCam. It's a lot of fun, and you learn a lot getting that rating. And then we have a school where we teach Rotax maintenance, and Dean Vogel, our instructor, is actually here at the show this year in the Rotax display.
Right.
And he does a fantastic job. He's a great teacher, and of course has a tremendous amount of knowledge. So those schools we hold about once a month.
Perfect. Now, there's one thing that I'm pretty sure that you remember, but I retired from the FAA in 2012, and I was the POI for your school, aviation-wise, at that time, and had a great time over there anyway. And I'm glad that you're still running that. I'm a born instructor. I love to teach. And that's, I guess that's my weak link, I guess. Now, according to our notes here, I believe that Rotax has something new in the works, and that is a tremendous advantage to the pilots who are currently owning experimental aircraft.
Yeah, Rotax has developed a new engine, which is out now. It's called the Rotax 916 IS. It's a electronically fuel-injected engine. It's turbocharged. It's part of their IS series. Everything is moving towards electronic fuel injection. And it's a 160 horsepower engine, so they're moving up into powering some 4-seat airplanes actually with that. And of course it's very light, like the other Rotaxes, very efficient. It's a really, really interesting package. So the fuel injection is all redundant.
Okay.
So you have 2 injectors per cylinder.
Well,
You have dual ignition, of course, 2 spark plugs per cylinder. And then you have 2 computers that run it. So everything is redundant. So it's very similar to fuel injection on a car, except duplicated double. And it's difficult to do. And of course, they're offering it also as a fully certificated FAR 33 engine, as well as for the experimental market. So it was a big step to take that new technology, put it into a certified engine. So it's a really neat package. And something else about Rotax that I think is kind of interesting is we've been able to keep up with parts and engine supplies through COVID pretty well. Like we didn't get, there were every now and then there was something, but for the most part we had most parts available versus some of the other guys who had a tough time. And I think part of that is Rotax has so much manufacturing might because they make so many engines.
oh yeah.
In 4 different factories around the world, and the aircraft engines are made in the Austria facility, which is huge.
Exactly.
And they're able to leverage that manufacturing might to adjust to demand and build a lot of engines.
As a mechanic, I'm a mechanic. I'm an automotive, diesel, and aviation mechanic. And what you just mentioned now, the redundancy of the system, that has to be really complicated to keep the sync of everything working together. But you said that there's a computer involved in that.
Yes, the current computer that they're using it's all solid state, and it's actually manufactured for them by Rockwell Collins. It's quite a sophisticated and very robust unit. So if you should have a problem with any part of the system, whether it's an ignition coil, a spark plug, an injector gets plugged, you name it, it will shut down that system and go to the other system.
Exactly.
So it's totally redundant. It
right
really,
magneto, left magneto.
we call them lanes on the new engines, right? But it's the same kind of thing, right? So it's lane A and lane B. Lane A runs one set of spark plugs and one set of injectors, and lane B runs the other. And normally they work together,
Right.
and the injectors double tap with each. But if you shut down a system, which you do when you do your lane check, mag check, right?
Right.
Then it shuts one system off, and then each injector does a double squirt by itself. You can hardly even tell that anything happened when you shut down. You get a red light, but the engine still runs normally.
Okay, I got one more thing to ask you here, and see, from a mechanic standpoint, I'm interested. The meter blend autogas issue. You says there are some issues with that.
So a lot of people run auto gas, and of course, Rotax does allow you to run auto gas in their engines. 91 octane or greater is what they want to see. And the thing about the auto gas is that they change the blend in the wintertime, and it's kind of important that people understand that because it becomes much more volatile. Auto gas is designed to work in a fuel-injected car, and it's when you put it in the fuel tank, they expect you to seal the cap, click, 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 and it's going to pressurize the tank, and it's going to keep that fuel fresh and stop the lighter portions of the fuel from evaporating.
Okay.
Right? And so that is a problem in an aircraft because aircraft tanks are vented. They don't pressurize. If you notice all the fuel cans you buy today, they don't have a vent on them.
No.
Because they want the tank to pressurize to keep the fuel in its liquid state. It's so volatile, especially the winter blend fuel, that it wants to turn into gas if it's just at ambient pressure. So this is a problem for a lot of aircraft today that are running auto gas in the winter. If they encounter warmer temperatures approaching 80 degrees, they get vapor lock.
Exactly.
Yeah, or if they fly over 10,000 feet, they get vapor lock. So some people need to be aware of that, that in the wintertime, when that winter blend fuel is available, they got to be a little more careful about what they're doing. Maybe they should be running Swift or avgas in the winter. Or we've found actually that if you mix avgas 100 LL with the winter blend autogas 50-50, it seems to work okay.
Right.
Summer blend autogas, much less volatile, not as much of a problem.
So there is no gumming up problems with the gas?
Well, that's the other issue with autogas is, again, if it's in a vented tank, it's going to want to evaporate, so you need to use it within a month, 6 weeks at the most, or it's going to go bad. So these are all things that we try and teach people. You can put fuel stabilizer in the gas. Stable makes one, and that will help to keep the fuel stable over time. But you can't put it in when the fuel's already bad.
Exactly.
So.
I learned about that the hard way. I own a boat, took it out of the water, full tanks of gas, didn't use it for about 9 months, and I had to replace 2 carburetors because they really come up right away. Now there's another thing that it's quite interesting to me that I have on my notes here, which is the Vans RV9 Firewall Forward engine package. Could you kind of describe that?
So we've been working on a Firewall Forward package for the RV9. Of course, the Vans series airplanes are very popular. And the RV9 was meant to fly on less power at higher altitudes. It was meant to be a more efficient model. It's not aerobatic like the others. It has a specially designed airfoil, Ronx airfoil, which is super efficient, laminar flow. And Rotax, the guys at Vans actually thought the 915, 916 engines might be a good match for that airplane. But they've been busy working on the RV15 and other things, and they didn't really have time to mess with it. And they asked us if we would work on a Firewall Forward package. So we did. And so we've finished all the flight testing. Took us 2 versions to get it to fly the way they want it to fly, using their test pilot. But it's a great package. It makes the plane about 80 pounds lighter, so you have more useful load.
And the horsepower is?
160.
Oh, 160.
Yeah, and the other cool thing about that engine, that 916, Rotax is offering it in the US with a 5-year, 2,000-hour warranty.
Wow.
So they stand behind that engine and all its components for 5 years or 2,000 hours, whichever comes first. It has a 2,000-hour TBO. It can also be run on tack time or flight time, which is the first engine that they've set. Most of their engines are maintained based on just running time, Hobbs time. So it actually can take it even beyond 2,000 hours if you're just doing flight time, up to another 400 hours to 2,400 actual Hobbs time. So super engine, super high tech, really well tested, light, powerful, capable of going up to 23,000 feet.
That's high.
Takeoff power up to 15,000 feet. So if you're taking off at Leadville and you got a density altitude of over 10,000 feet, you still have full power for takeoff.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
That's a great improvement, I would say.
For people that operate at higher altitudes out west that want to clear mountains or operating out of a high altitude strip, Telluride, for example, in the summer they can have density altitudes of over 10,000 feet. You need to have the right airplane for that, right? This airplane with that engine, it's going to run like sea level. And I mean, the performance is really incredible. We can be flying at 12,000 feet, which I like that altitude because I can still be on the edge of not needing oxygen, and yet I'm over most of the airspace and weather, smooth air. I can cruise at 170 knots on about 7.4 gallons an hour.
Wow.
Or if I want to push it up and burn more fuel, I can do 180 knots true. And the engine goes lean to peak automatically. There's no mixture, just like your car. It's all controlled by the computer. So you pull the power back, it knows when it can go lean to peak, does it
regardless of altitude?
Yep, and it can
temperature.
Run. Yep, and it takes advantage of the 2 plugs, allowing it to go even leaner, because it can burn a leaner mixture with the 2 spark plugs. So it's very efficient, very easy to operate, single lever. I got a prop controller on ours, so I got my prop, constant speed prop, and then I've got my throttle, and the mixture's done. And when I go lean to peak, if I change altitudes, it does it for me. It does everything for me.
That's amazing.
Keeps it the mixture perfect.
Now, you mentioned that it could go. It could be on 2-seaters or 4-seaters, or
well, yeah,
regardless of the airplane, or
sure. 160 horsepower, even the predecessor to it, which is still in production, the 915, which is 141 horsepower, that is working in 4-seat airplanes. So the Sling TSI, for example, that's a 4-seater, very capable airplane. I mean, it's got a big useful load, I think in the neighborhood of 1,000 pounds. And so it works as a 4-seat airplane. One of the things that people don't understand is with the 916 at 160 horsepower, it's capable of putting out 135 continuous, which is even more, 137, which is 75% of 180. Exactly. So it cruises like a 180. And eco mode, you're at about 120 horse, so you're cruising like a 160 there. So, and you know, when you see 160 horse, 180 horse, that's standard day at sea level, right?
Right.
In the summertime, you're usually above that, so it's very quickly you're putting out less than that. With this engine, you've always got the power that it's rated at because of the turbocharger.
Well, I'll tell you, just to know that you can go into the high country and not to worry. Well, you always worry about density, altitude, but at least you have this something to back you up, where you know you're not going to be left out there at the whims of the winds, you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Now, you mentioned something on the introduction about multi-engine. Multi-engine on the experimental side?
Right, the AirCam twin, yeah. So a lot of people get Lotus, which allow them to do transition training. We have an AirCam in our flight school on wheels that we do transition training in for customers. But the FAA won't allow us to do multi-engine training because you got to use a certified airplane for that, right?
Right.
So we will offer transition training for people that have just bought an AirCam and need to get checked out, and so we do that on a regular basis. But with the seaplane, they made a special exception for us because the AirCam is probably one of the most produced multi-sea planes out there right now, and our owners needed to have a multi-sea rating, and it was almost impossible to get it.
Yes.
It was very difficult to get that rating. So they went ahead and allowed us to start doing multi-sea training in our twin AirCam, provided the customer already has an unrestricted multi-land rating that they got in a regular plane, right? So they have that. And you know, the training is turning out to be popular, and I think it's really great because people are getting that rating and doing it in the AirCam because it's going to be fun, but they're really getting the training. They're really doing everything they need to do to meet the standard. And they're also getting gear training because our AirCam is amphibious. A lot of people get a seaplane rating. You know, they do it on straight floats because it's cheaper, safer, insurance is less, but they're not getting the gear practice.
Exactly.
And then when they do multi-sea with us, they're getting more than a multi-sea rating. They're getting amphibious gear training. And of course, the number one cause of fatal accidents in seaplanes that are amphibious is landing on the water with the gear down.
Exactly.
So we're training that, and of course they got to pass that when they take their check ride. They're going to try and fool them and get them to land on the water with the gear down, and of course that's a fail. So it's people are going away from that with great training.
I remember when I was an FAA inspector, I investigated 2 accidents. The same pilot, same thing. Landed with the gear underwater with the gear, you know.
Yeah, it's bad.
And it's the thing that well, it happens with even with the land plane. I think that there should be some kind of button that when you're a private pilot, that you do put the gear down and a green light comes up, and even flying for private.
It'd be good. It'd be good for training, but of course, if you forget, there's no consequence, right? So in this case, there really is, and. Yeah, so the whole industry has gone to the float seaplane industry, and I'm involved with that because I've been on the board of the Seaplane Pilots Association for many years. Right. We've gone to teaching positive rate of climb gear up.
Yeah.
So whatever you do when you take off, you're climbing, get the gear up, whether you plan to land on the water or not. Because what happens is people leave the gear down, they don't want to waste a cycle, and you don't pick up much speed usually in a seaplane with the gear down. And they're going to land at an airport, and then they see an opportunity. Oh, look at that lake! I'm going to go, and they forget that the gear's down. They land. If you forget that the gear's up, it's just embarrassing, but you're not going to get hurt.
And that is probably one of the main faults with humans. Anyway, we have reached the point where everything stops.
Okay.
And, time goes fast when you're having fun.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for
Yeah,
coming.
my pleasure.
And you out there, please come to Lakeland and stay tuned because we're coming back in about half an hour. Have a great day.